Ready and turn. Nice.
The wedding is this Saturday. What stories are you gonna do?
What do you mean, my speech?
Yeah. Are you gonna use the first time we met?
Yes.
Okay, what about the first date?
Yeah, of course.
Fuck.
You don't have to do a speech.
So you're saying Charlie is your first
Love? Yeah.
first love or your first crush?
Both, I think. Wait, is that insane?
At 30?
So I want to say this thing about her laugh. You know how it's very cute, but it's also kind of
repulsive even.
All right, so before we got married, we did this thing where we said the worst thing we've ever done.
Okay. I'll tell mine if we all do it. Promise?
What did you do?
This dog.
Beer bottles and porn.
You left him there overnight.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing I've ever done?
Okay,
Are you serious?
I'm sorry.
Order an Uber.
Emma, what the fuck?
Welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Show. This time for my review of A24's The Drama, starring Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. It's written and directed by Christopher Borgli, the filmmaker behind the 2023 A24 release Dream Scenario, starring Nick Cage. That was a quirky comedic thriller I really enjoyed, and like that movie, this movie is produced by A24 Wunderkind Ari Aster. But this is a fairly mainstream movie compared to Aster's last few films. From watching the first part of the trailer, some might be expecting a romantic comedy with a funny meet-cute between the two stars, playing Emma and Charlie. They're about to get married as we follow them around for all the preparations. During much of the plot setup, they're spending a lot of time with their best friends, Mike and Rachel, played by Mamoudou Athie and Alana Haim, who are also the best man and maid of honor at their wedding. During these preparations, they're testing out food and wine and drinking a bit too much when Mike and Rachel tell their friends that before they got married, they shared the worst thing they've ever done. That leads to Emma revealing something she did when she was a teenager in high school, and that leads to some major friction between the four friends. I'm going to hold off on all spoilers for now, because Emma's secret is what leads to everything that happens afterwards. I'll just talk about the movie in a general sense. It's good to know this is very much not a romantic comedy, as much as it's a dark comedy that comes out of typical rom-com tropes. In fact, we first meet Charlie and Emma during a meet-cute at a coffee shop, where Charlie pretends to have read the book that Emma's reading. This attempt to start a conversation bombs badly, but it sets up the tone of the rest of the movie. I've become such a big Zendaya fan, way more than I am a fan of our Pats. So watching a movie where she can play a less glamorous and perfect character was quite refreshing. Although I guess she kind of did that in Luca Guadagnino's Challenge too. In this one, she even projectile vomits a few times. So that's going to be a bit of a shock for her biggest fans. The point of the drama is that it's examining these relationships that lead to two people getting married and what could be a deal breaker, as Liz Lemon would aptly put it. I don't think I'd kick Zendaya out of bed, even if she admits to killing my own parents. And Emma's actual secret is not that bad. It does give Charlie and others second thoughts, though, just as others aren't aware of what's going on. Pattinson's reactions are pretty amusing, and things get more and more shocking as things go on, as he's trying to figure out how to deal with what Emma told him. I continue to be impressed with Christopher Borgli as a filmmaker. I really liked how he dealt with tone in Dream Scenario. And it's a similar thing here, where it's a very difficult subject matter to deal with in a comedic sense, while also keeping things real dramatically. One issue I did have with the movie's plot is that I always thought that many of these preparations for weddings would be happening long before the week of the wedding. I'm not quite sure I believed how Charlie and the others reacted to Emma's secret either, because I feel like it was a little overblown. But it's a great setup for some very dark comedic moments, as well as for Zendaya and our Pats to pull out the stops as dramatic actors. I actually loved Alana Haim in this role because she's hilariously judgy of her best friend, and Athie also has some fun moments, because he has to help Charlie decide whether to keep moving ahead with the wedding, which is coming up very fast. There are other characters, including a wedding photographer played by Haley Gates, who was great in the moment, and also appeared in Marty Supreme and Challengers. She also directed a Sundance comedy I quite enjoyed called Utopia. She was very funny in this one for reasons I can't really go into detail without spoiling Emma's secret. This is a great movie to watch with the audience, because when you watch a scene where Emma exposes her secret, seeing how others respond and see how where things go from there keeps the movie so entertaining, rather than just getting all serious and dramatic. In many ways, it's a movie that makes you wonder what you might do in that similar situation. In other words, the drama is the darkest of comedies, elevated by a thought-provoking script and a cast compelling enough to keep the viewer invested, despite what might be considered an off-putting subject matter. For that, I'm giving the drama a 7.5 out of 10, because I would recommend it, but only to certain people who I think have a darker sense of humor. I probably will see it a second time with a real audience, because it's one of those movies where the audience reactions really add a lot to the experience. Okay, at this point, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I'm going to get into spoiler territory, and I recommend you stop watching now. I feel like I do have to talk about the main plot, because in some cases it might decide whether people want to see the movie or not. Either way, you can stop now and avoid all spoilers, or you can continue, and you can hear a little more about Emma's secret in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Emma's secret. After the three others revealed the worst thing they ever did, which are mostly innocuous things like using your girlfriend as a human shield against an attacking dog, Emma tells the others that when she was a teen in high school, she thought about committing a school shooting. She was a 15-year-old outsider, constantly being bullied at a new school, and she had access to her father's rifle. When she borrows it to learn how to shoot, she holds it close to one of her ears, making her deaf in that ear. But that's something she hasn't told any of her friends or Charlie. Now, I can understand how people might react to this. There have actually been so many actual terrible and deadly school shootings in this country, but I think by now we would have become accustomed to movies about them. These movies include Gus Van Sant's Elephant, Philip Noyce's The Desperate Hour with Naomi Watts, Lynn Ramsey's We Need to Talk About Kevin, and the drama Mass. At least the latter two are more about the aftermath of a school shooting and how it affects those families. In fact, there was just a movie last week about school shootings called Our Hero Balthazar, which was far more problematic, even if it also just involves teens talking about school shootings. That movie was also even more confusing because it wasn't even meant as a comedy. It's not even remotely funny if it was meant as a comedy. Even worse than that was this movie called Run Amok, which I saw at the most recent Sundance, which involved a girl whose mother was a teacher killed in a school shooting. So she decides to stage a musical about the shooting, which also wasn't very funny, but also was just plain bad. In the case of the drama, there isn't even an actual school shooting to watch. It's all hypothetical. Instead, it's about how Charlie and their friends react to Emma's secret. To me, their reaction seemed a little over the top, but it did lead to a lot of inadvertently funny scenes involving people who didn't know about Emma's secret. It also builds a hilarious climax when we actually get to the wedding and everything comes together. And actually, everything falls apart as well. I'm a little annoyed that TMZ spoiled Emma's secret with an irresponsible story about the father of one of the kids that died at Columbine. That just shows you what's wrong with the news cycles these days. And that's even with sites like TMZ, which is not really news, but they're just looking for clickbait hits and traffic. I even made a rather innocuous tweet with my reaction to the drama that ended up as part of the story from one of the outlets that picked up this news from TMZ. Frankly, after watching those other movies I mentioned, the drama is fairly tame and innocuous in its efforts to look at school shootings. Still, I have a feeling that's going to make the movie very divisive, both among critics and fans of the two actors. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. I generally liked it quite a bit, enough to see it a second time. And as I said before, I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10.
Am I sensing some nerves? Remember, you know each other really well.
You have to stop thinking about it.
Can I just say stop thinking?
So you are thinking about it.
Oh, for fuck's sake, I am thinking about it now.
How can you even trust her?
You're being incredibly hypocritical.
I never said he was mentally disabled.
Yes, you did. You said he was slow. You said he was slow.
Emma, true love is complicated.
Sorry. I was just trying to do your stupid joke thing.
It's about acceptance, radical acceptance.
Why are you acting like you've never done anything bad?
What the fuck was that?
I don't know. It's just, there's some drama. It's very funny.